So let's jump to the speedy recap for episode 9. And wow, what an episode it was.
It's the First Home Buyers Show, where first home buyers go to watch their wealth grow. And here's your host, Jane Slack-Smith.
So in episode 9, we talked about suburbs and where you can afford to buy. Now, if you are someone who's a first home buyer, an investor, someone who's going for the first home loan deposit scheme, then you would not want to know where your money is going to be the best spent. So if you are going to buy under the first home loan deposit scheme, there are some property purchase caps depending on whether you're in capital cities or regional areas, and they change state by state. So we covered that off in the episode. Now, if you're a first home buyer who's going to think strategically about this home not being your forever home and potentially changing it into an investment property in the future, then you definitely need to listen to this. If you're an investor who's just found your way to the First Home Buyers Show and you're kind of interested about how to buy and where to buy, you definitely need to listen to this. And if you're someone who thinks, look, this is going to be my home for quite a period of time, but in some time in the future, I'm going to sell it and hopefully upgrade, and I'd like to have more equity in the property, this is definitely for you. So let me tell you what we did. A number of the community members in the First House Buyer Facebook group nominated some suburbs for me to have a look at. Now, I looked at 3 suburbs, one in Sydney, one in Melbourne, and one in Brisbane. Now, I used different techniques to look at each of those suburbs, but I was looking at all the same things. So in the very first suburb that we looked at, I used all the free software that is available. So first of all, we went into realestate.com.au and I showed you where the suburb profiles were, domain.com.au. We then headed over to SQM Research. We then went to Census as well. We gathered all the information from all the different areas. And the information we're looking at is information that's going to give us an indication about whether that suburb is going to perform well. Now, first and foremost, we're looking for pricing pressure. Now, this is sometimes called the ripple effect. And the ripple effect just means that when people can't afford to buy in one area, they kind of move to the next area. And that's when the prices start going up. So we looked at ripple effect. We then looked at some of the filters that I have used as I've been investing over the last 20 years. And what I have done in looking at the last 20 and 30 years of pricing in different suburbs. So I've tried to work out what suburbs have outperformed the others and some of the filters. And then I've applied some low risk categories as well. So some of the filters that we were looking at, I want to have at least 30% renters in the area. So we jumped over to Census and we found that. I want to see how many sales are happening as well in the year, because I don't want to be wasting my time in areas that haven't had a lot of properties for sale. If there's only 2 properties coming on the market every single month, am I going to spend every weekend there hoping that the property's going to come up? No. So I look for a minimum of about 60 sales. I then also looked at vacancy rate. Now, vacancy rate is another measure of demand for rental properties. Now, it is accepted that 3% is considered to be the equilibrium. So when the vacancy rate's 3%, there's as many people looking to rent as there are landlords putting their properties on the market. So if we want an in-demand rental property, we want to be below 3%. So we looked at vacancy rates below 3%. And you can pull all that information from all those different websites. But then we went to the second suburb that I reviewed. And when we looked at the second suburb, I used my proprietary suburb selector software, which I have available in my location masterclass, and we have links to that. But what I wanted to tell you about that is I kind of got a bit lazy. I thought, I'm going to all these websites, I'm trying to find this information. So I thought, why not just get it all and put it in one spot? So I buy data from SQM Research, I get all the data from Census, I add it all together, I allow you to put filters in there such as this is what I can afford to buy, and very quickly I can have a look at the information. It gives me an idea of pricing pressure. It gives me all the data that I need to know, even down to the amount of public housing, which did come up as a concern in one of our suburbs. So that was all the information in one place. And as you could see in the analysis, if you go back to the full episode of episode 9 in the First Home Buyer Show, you can see it took a lot less time. And then we looked at what the typical property is. So when we went into suburb number 3, we once again quickly did some analysis, but then I looked at another paid tool, and this is RP Data. And RP Data Professional, which is $150 a month, allows you to go in, and once again you can create alerts, which I showed you how to do. Now you can do that in domain and real estate, which are free, but some of the things you can do in RP data, which I just love, is that you can also go in and you can have a look at the area, making sure it's a typical type of property. You can have a look at comparable sales, you can have a look at recent sales, but you can also go in there and you can generate your own valuations. Now, this is the same tool that a lot of the banks use for valuations, so you're ahead of the game. So not only are you going to be notified when the typical property, well, let's say it's a 3-bedroom house, comes on the market, and you get that information from Census or from my Suburb Selector software. You get that information because you want to have the typical property. And why is this so important? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is so important because we need to have the typical property that most people want to buy and most people want to rent if we want to rent it out, because we want to minimise our risk and not having a property that is so obscure that you're going to have a really limited market to rent or sell it to. So we want a property that the typical people want. So there you have it. I covered off a lot of information. We looked at 3 suburbs. Now these 3 suburbs were actually on my list as well. We looked at the pricing caps for the first home loan deposit scheme, and another thing that we did is I actually shared with you the suburbs that have come up when I've done my analysis over 8,500 suburbs in the month of December 2019 that I think are worth a second look for a savvy investor or a first home buyer. So please go into the full episode, check out those suburbs, have a look at the analysis, learn how to do it, because this is something you can do yourself and it gives you the information that you need so that you can be ahead of the game. And if you like this information, please, go over to the First House Buyer page, check it all out. I really encourage you to get your lending assessment, eligibility assessment done. If you are looking for the first home loan deposit scheme, head over to firsthousebuyer.com.au where you can have a 2-minute quiz to work out if you are how you're going to be assessed by lenders. Go over also to that firsthousebuyer.com.au website because I have a link there to the grant eligibility quiz as well. So both of these quizzes take about 2 minutes each. It gives you an idea whether you're going to be eligible for the grant and for how lenders are going to look at you. There's a lot more information over there as well. It's a great site. Please go there. And that is it for the episode 9 First Home Buyer Speedy Recap. Speak to you soon. And now to the credits.
And that's it for this week's First Home Buyers Show. And Jane will be back next time with more tips, tricks, resources and interviews.
See you then.